Hi everyone, welcome back to episode 13 of Spooky and Kooky.
As always, if you're into anything paranormal, horror, conspiracy, you're in the right place. It's a safe space. We talk about it all here.
I'm really looking forward to this episode because we're going to be talking about haunted hospitals.
Yes, but to give you a bit of kook before the spook,
Oh,
I've got this article that I saw a couple of weeks back and I just wanted to tell you about it because I just found it so bizarre. So, the actual title of the article is Man Who Tried to Get Eaten Alive by Snake Immediately Regretted It.
oh my god.
So, a guy called Paul Rosalie, he was a conservationist in the Amazon,
Yeah,
and he loved all these creatures, including the green anaconda.
right.
And he came up with a little publicity scheme to spread awareness about conservation for these animals.
By letting it eat you. I know what will make them seem endearing.
So it says, back in 2014, the nature lover embarked on a daring mission that saw him offer himself up for dinner to the largest and heaviest snake in the world, which also doubled as a massive fundraiser to protect the rainforest. And I'll just say it, if this was a Just Giving page, I'm not giving to it.
Oh,
You know, if
who
you're
let
doing
him
this.
go ahead with this?
Exactly.
He wasn't like, oh, I think there's. We'll park that idea. Has anyone else got any suggestions?
I hear that you want to do it, but
I love the enthusiasm. Keep that. Maybe we'll do something else though.
sorry, I really can't get through it. It just really tickled me, and I knew you'd find it funny. So it says, Jungle Keepers founder, whose organisation claims to have protected more than 77,000 plus acres of Amazonian habitat and wildlife, quickly came to regret this decision, though, when it came down to it. Rosalie's incredible quest was featured in an episode of Discovery Channel series Eaten Alive and showed how the 38-year-old spent weeks trying to track down a green anaconda with a 10-strong team. So he had to put in the legwork to track one down. It wasn't just a one-day event.
Oh my god, my face then when you said spent weeks, I was like, oh my god, he was in there for weeks. I thought he's trying to get out of the snake.
That's what I thought, but no, he was just looking for it. So luckily, I don't know if I would describe it as lucky, but they found the perfect candidate, a 20-foot long, 18-zone snake in the Peruvian Amazon. Rosalie was donning a carbon fibre suit for the bizarre experiment, which had been custom made by a team of engineers using 3D technology to ensure he wouldn't get crushed by the snake. It was streamlined so that it would not irritate the animal's insides, which I like, was strong enough to survive its digestive fluids too. The animal lover was slathered in pig's blood to make sure his journey into the snake's skull went as smoothly as possible. He lubricated
Slide on
himself.
down. Literally slide down its gullet.
So Rosalie's specialist suit was also rigged out with a radio mic and built-in cameras so the team could communicate with him about what was going on at all times.
I think they'd be able to hear him probably.
Hear and scream.
What's the end game? How's he getting out? Did they think about that?
Like I said,
It didn't get that far.
he pulled the cord pretty quickly, but that
Maybe
was
he had
my
the same thought. He's like, wait,
We didn't go past me actually getting into the snake.
I didn't think you'd all say yes and someone would actually make the suit.
He said it just to look cool, and people were like, actually, that's a really good idea. And he was like,
Cool, 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 cool,
Guys.
cool.
so I'm going to get eaten by a snake, yeah?
I'm
Yeah.
putting on the suit.
Who's going to stop me?
It's on.
So So he also sported a face mask which was connected to a crush-proof hose that trailed behind him, which was attached to a 3-hour oxygen supply, so he would have only been in there 3 hours, so I'm guessing they did have an exit strategy. Just in case he did get completely eaten and ended up suffocating in the snake's stomach. So they knew it was a possibility.
Oh, so they only want him to be partially.
So, Rosalie approached the anaconda on all fours in a bid to fool the snake into thinking he was a wild boar. I bet the snake saw him and was like, get up.
Oh
I'm
my
going to
god.
eat you regardless. Just get up.
You're such an ick.
Honestly, there's a picture I'll show you in a sec.
Do you think it'll be on his Tinder profile?
You know those voice notes on Hinge? Like, what's your biggest achievement? One's got eaten by an anaconda. So it only took a matter of seconds before the female anaconda had her 5'9" victim exactly where she wanted him. It latched onto Rosalie's head and began constricting his arms and body by wrapping itself around him. I'm getting claws all over me, he told his team at the time. She's got my arms pinned. She knows there's nothing I can do. Rosalie was then heard saying, oh God, reassured his colleagues that he was okay, even though his heart rate had shot up pretty high and his breathing had become really laboured, according to one of the team. He said he was trying to stay calm as the green anaconda began to tighten her grip around his body as he wriggled on the rainforest floor, later admitting that he is the type who will say, I'm fine, until I'm ultimately unalived.
I think they knew that. I bet they were creasing up.
He's not fine. He's panicking. I bet they had bets, like how long do you think before he pulls the eject button on this? So the daredevil didn't respond when another colleague checked in with him before the snake latched onto his head. Rosalie then screamed to his pals, stand by guys, I'm starting to feel like she's consuming me. Guys, my face is down. I'm calling it, I need help. The team immediately rushed over and wrestled the snake off him, despite only part of his consumed.
Oh, this is so embarrassing.
Speaking of his attempt at getting eaten alive afterwards, Rosalie said, the last thing I remember was her mouth open wide and everything went black. I went limp and let it constrict. All the while I was just thinking, eat, eat, eat. You weren't, because you said I need help.
You didn't even get your head all the way.
She wrapped around me and I felt my suit cracking and my arms ripping out of their sockets, he recalled. Okay. As you can tell, the animal lover realised very quickly that he could be inches away from death. He explained that he feared the snake was going to snap his arms as her force was fully on his exposed arm, which is why he decided to tap out of the experiment. Why did he have an exposed arm? I thought he was in a suit that was crushed through.
Get me out.
But Rosalie insisted he wasn't terrified during an interview with MSNBC, as he was confident that his carbon fibre suit was strong and that he wouldn't get crushed, adding that there were experts on hand in case of any issues. It's just not true though, is it? You said your arm was exposed and you thought she was going to crush you.
It's almost like he didn't know it was recorded.
Yeah.
And like, we've got it on camera. He's like, oh. Okay.
They show him the bit where he's like calling for help and he's like, well, yeah, I did call for help, but only because...
That must have been delirium. I don't remember that. That's not how.
So he said, we took a lot of care, the author added. It was really about showing people the power of these snakes with the mission of protecting their habitats. The fact he was between the jaws of a green anaconda that was squeezing the life out of him, that he lived to tell the tale, while dodging asphyxiation, is clearly a mean feat, but let's leave the eaten alive stuff to movies, eh? But I'll show you the picture quickly, because it is like major ick. Imagine seeing that on a Tinder profile. How quickly you would swipe left.
I can't even see what's happening.
I'll put the picture up here.
Oh.
Is it left that's no? Yeah. You would just swipe. You would swipe
So quickly.
Whatever no is, you would just be like.
Immediately no.
I'm not getting involved with that.
I'm not even going to ask. I'm not even going to give you the satisfaction.
I'm not going to give you the time of day to let you explain that.
Best believe if you went on a date, you would hear that story about 10 times. Oh my god.
His friends and family are just like, have you noticed that Paul's his personality's just kind of changed since that experience, and he will only talk about it. They're like, how are you? And he's like, I'm not doing bad. Not as bad as the time I got eaten by an anaconda.
Arms still a bit sore.
Yeah.
That was 2 years ago. Yeah, well.
He goes into the office and he's like, oh, and they're like, just don't ask.
It's never been the same.
Not to ask him about his arm. It's a new person who's just like, what happened to your arm? And he's like,
everyone literally eye rolls. So
anaconda.
thank you for asking.
Just while looking at everyone else in the office, like, at least someone's compassionate to me. After my feat to save the Amazon.
It was pretty heroic, actually.
I actually saved a lot of snakes with this stunt. And they're like, how many? And he's like, well, I don't know the exact figure.
A lot.
They're like, meanwhile, the snake that was involved in the incident unfortunately passed.
Of embarrassment.
It's like, why did I have to be recorded? Why did you mix me up in this?
He's like, a second minute later, I would have had it in a chokehold. I didn't need them to stand in. Okay.
Yeah, they stood in prematurely. I was actually handling it just fine. You can see from the video footage.
Don't help.
But yeah, that was a kook before the ultimate spook of the episode.
I greatly enjoyed that.
Right, so haunted hospitals.
Yes, this story is about Taunton State Hospital. Okay, in 1854, Taunton State Hospital opened its doors, designed as a refuge from those suffering from mental illness. Jane Topham, a nurse at the hospital, harboured a sinister secret. While she appeared to be a dedicated caregiver, she was in fact experimenting on her patients with lethal injections, later to confessing to enjoying watching their final moments. Her actions led to the deaths of at least 31 people, and she was eventually caught and imprisoned. However, the dark energy she left behind seemed to linger within the hospital walls. One night, a new patient named Margaret was admitted to the hospital. Margaret was a quiet woman, troubled by visions and voices only she could hear. She often spoke of shadowy figures lurking in corners of her room, whispering her name. The staff dismissed her claims as just a mere symptom of her illness, but Margaret wasn't the only one who noticed strange occurrences. Night shift nurses reported seeing a shadowy figure roaming the hallways, disappearing into thin air. The basement, in particular, held an oppressive atmosphere. It was said that during the hospital's early years, patients who were too difficult to manage were taken to the basement and never seen again. One night, Margaret was found missing from her room. A frantic search ensued, and she was eventually discovered in the basement, huddled in a corner, muttering incoherently. She spoke of a man with cold, lifeless eyes who had led her there, insisting that she wasn't alone. Shortly after this incident, the staff began to notice peculiar sounds emanating from the basement. Footsteps echoing in empty halls, whispered conversations, and the occasional eerie laughter. The legend of the basement grew, with many believing that the spirits of the forgotten patients, along with Jane Topham's dark presence, continued to haunt the hospital.
She obviously said she was experimenting as a defence, but you're not experimenting on them, you're just...
Yeah, it's a lethal injection.
Unaliving them, like, you're not...
You know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't... That's why I laughed at that bit, because I was like... You know the outcome of this. How's an experiment? Like, you give it, and then they pass, and you're like, tick it off on the sheet.
Oh, it does work.
Yeah, let me just try that
31 more times.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's creepy. And also, if, like, Margaret went down to the basement, like, say, little old patient Margaret went down to the basement, and I'm the nurse on the night shift, and I've got to go down there and get her back out, I would just be like, not that.
She'll be alright.
Yeah, she's fine down there. She's not causing any trouble.
At the top of the stairs, like, Margaret. Margaret.
You've just got a stick. Like, just grab hold of this stick.
I'll pull you up. I'm not going down there.
You just say to the other people on shift, like, look, we all know that there's a dark presence here. Whatever's got her has got her.
Yeah. I'm sorry for Margaret.
To save ourselves. Okay, so my first story is actually from my brother who works in healthcare. He is a ODP, which stands for Operating Department Practitioner. Don't ask me what he does between the hours of 9 to 5, because I don't know. But there's something to do with operating theatres. So
Okay.
he said when he was doing a university course, he was on a night shift. So obviously you've got to do placements and things. And all the theatres had finished for the night. So he thought, I'm going to go down to the IT room and get some of my uni work done.
Yeah.
So he was sat in the IT room. Everything was quiet. He was the only one down there. And then he started hearing footsteps. And he said it was quite clear that it was hospital shoes on the floor, because obviously nurses and other healthcare professional, they have to wear specific shoes in the hospital. Pretty sure in theatres they wear Crocs, which I would love. But yeah, he said it was like the definite sound of footsteps, and the footsteps came up to the door where he was working in, and he sort of looked around expecting there to be someone there or someone passing, but the footsteps just got to the door, no one was there, and he never heard footsteps go away, he never heard footsteps go back in the same direction, he just heard the footsteps stop, so he got up and looked out to the door and there was no one there.
Oh. Oh no.
I would never go back to work.
I don't need an excuse to not go back to work, but that would really cement that for me.
Yeah. He told me another one years ago as well that he says he doesn't remember, so maybe it didn't happen to him, it happened to someone else, but he walked past a room with a monitor that was unplugged but it was still beeping. Ooh. And I've heard of that happening quite a lot in hospitals, so I don't know if those monitors are by battery, but even if they were battery, in the moment it would really freak me out.
Yeah, and surely they wouldn't be beeping if there's no one attached to them.
Yeah.
Battery or not.
Yeah, it would just really freak me out. But yeah.
I don't like it. I've got a Reddit story next.
Oh, I love the Reddit ones.
And this one, she's actually quite funny. So...
We said there was a spooky atmosphere. We've laughed the whole way through.
Well, I only say that because, like, she reacts how I feel like we would react, where we just try and make it funny.
Yeah.
Or, like, just make it a joke after the fact.
I think that is literally my superpower in life, because there are some things that pushes me to the absolute limit where I break, but most things, like, things happen and I just try and find some funny in it, even if it's so not funny.
Yeah.
I'm just a huge believer in anything you go through in life. If you can make a joke out of it and laugh about it yourself, it gets less.
Yeah, less painful.
Yeah.
I'm just going to turn my trauma into the jokes.
Yeah, so I think it's a little, like, superpower of mine to just laugh in the face of adversity.
This is from Dark Horse 0934. One particular room where I work definitely has something going on in it. Patients pass in that room more than any other. Most claim to see her in the upper corners. In the upper corners of the room. Nope. Ooh.
That would be like that contortion. Like.
Oh no.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when they're in the corner.
Yeah. Oh, in the upper corners of the room, behind the door or behind the curtains.
No. Those are fighting words.
When pressed to describe her or who her is, they'll just point in the direction and say, her. They rarely speak of her in past tense. It's normally in present tense, like she's there.
My spine is shivering.
I've actually got a shiver. I love how I was like, she's actually so funny, this story. It's not.
Okay.
In that room, lights flicker, mostly when you turn them off. They sort of surge a little bit, if that makes sense. Sometimes patients will complain about someone who keeps whispering, hey, or breathing in their ear while they're trying to sleep. All stuff I dismissed as, yes, lots of people die there because it's room 1. It's more likely to have people in it because it's the first room on the hallway, and most critical patients are in the room that's closest to the nurses' station.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Flickering lights, power surges, faulty wiring or bad bulbs, people hearing things or seeing things is a regular phenomenon when they're dying. So I just say it's the brain preparing to or actively unaliving, not a true ghost. I was making the rounds. It was about 2:30 in the morning. I walked past that room and the lights were off, the door was closed, and no one was in it. I came back about 3 a.m. and the door was about 2 foot open. The bedside light was on and the curtain pulled around the far bed. I could see a silhouette of a person standing through the curtain. I thought it was a co-worker trying to scare me. In brackets, we scare each other regularly. Since I could see them through the curtain, I was going to Uno reverse the shit out of them and scare them. I slipped in the door, tiptoed across the room, and tried to grab them through the curtain. I lunged, fully expecting to grab him, and I grabbed nothing but air. I was leaning forward enough, it looked like I was trying to swing on the curtain. I kind of kept going and ended up laying across the bed. Whoever I had seen through the curtain was not there.
Oh.
I had a shiver run up my spine and a sudden feeling of dread in my stomach. My hearing became very acute and it was almost like things slowed down. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears and it took what felt like forever to look back towards the door. The bathroom light was off, then pulsed/fluttered like it was trying to come on. Time and speed came back to me and I bolted out the door and back to the nurses' station. My co-workers were all doing some chartering or coming back up the hall. They laughed when I told them what happened. We walked back down to the room and the light was still on. Curtain was partially open and dangling where I had pulled it so hard, but the bed covers were flung open on one side like someone had got out of the bed. Bathroom light flipped right on and back off with no issues. They jokingly accused me of sleeping on the job and having a night terror. Now I use humour to kind of cope with that room and I'm back on days. Oh, back on day shifts. I'll say, not today, Satan, or I rebuke you in the name of Jesus, or the power of Christ compels you in a half-joking manner going into that room.
She just says it.
Yeah, because she ends, but I know on the inside I'm still kind of low-key scared. You know that you'd be like absolutely terrified but trying to just laugh it off like
Well,
it
you know
didn't
what
happen.
at the end of the day, you know what's happened. You know yourself that this is just spooky, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no explanation for it really.
Right, okay. So my one is called The Unsettling Tale of Colleen's Last Escape. So, during my tenure as a nurse manager at a community nursing home, I encountered an inexplicable occurrence while covering for a sick supervisor during the night shift. At precisely 2:50 in the morning, an unnerving symphony began as every door alarm simultaneously erupted into frantic buzzing. Initial disbelief led me to suspect a system malfunction because the scenario of multiple residents attempting an escape seemed implausible. I rallied my team, particularly the newest members, to inspect each door. The relentless alarms persisted for an agonising 20 minutes until a veteran CNA returned from her break. She assessed the chaos, the alarms, and then me, clutching the control blocks, and declared matter-of-factly, "Open the window, Colleen wants out." Skepticism made her insistence seem like a dark joke, but her intensifying urgency couldn't be ignored. "She'll grow angry. Open the window." Compelled, I opened the window. In an instant, the alarm ceased across every floor, right down to the basement, and it was all quiet again. The memory sends shivers down my spine, to this day heightened by the image of the open windows' curtains billowing, as though a presence had swept through them, causing an unseen escape. Colleen, as it turned out, was a centenarian pioneer resident of our home, passing away at 108, with no kin to mourn her. That night it seemed like she had her one last journey to make.
Oh, it's made me all cold.
But that seems like it's happened before, though.
Yeah, so she's obviously got a couple of journeys left to make.
Or
Where's
unless
she
it's
going?
like every other night, it's just been like she's just.
Did they have to let her back in? She's ready to come back in now. Oh.
But yeah, I just imagine like if I was on shift and someone was like, Colleen wants out, I'd be like, what? What are you on about? And they're like, she'll grow angry. You need to let her out. And I'd be like, pressing the window like button.
Okay.
Then when all the alarms stop, I'd be like, okay, a couple of questions. Who's Colleen?
Yeah.
And how did you know?
How many times has it happened? Because you seem fine with it.
And you seem like the only one who knows.
Oh my god.
So yeah.
Right. My next one is about Saint Bartholomew. I can't say the name.
Saint Bartholomew's.
Yes, hospital. Oh god, I do have to say it again.
Say Saint Bees.
Saint Bees. Yeah, I was going to try and say it again, but let's just save my embarrassment and not do that. Okay, Emily Thompson worked at St. Bees. On her third night shift, Emily was assigned to cover the old wing of the hospital, a section that had been largely abandoned except for a few storage rooms and the infamous coffin lift. They really stitched her up on her third shift, making her do that. The lift had earned its nickname due to its frequent trips to the basement morgue.
No, I wouldn't have guessed that.
Stories circulated among the staff about the lift's eerie behaviour, stopping at random floors, travelling on its own, and the occasional ghostly passenger. Around midnight, Emily received a call from a nurse in the new wing, asking her to retrieve some medical supplies stored in the old wing. Best believe I wouldn't be getting it either. Emily can get that. Emily grabbed her torch and headed towards the halls. As she reached the old wing, Emily noticed the temperature drop significantly.
The fact she even needed to take a torch and there's no, good lighting.
Just turn the light on.
No, I'm not doing that.
She shivered, walking past the empty rooms and dusty equipment, finally reaching the supply closet. Just as she was about to open the door, she heard the distinct sound of the lift doors opening behind her. Turning around, Emily saw the coffin lift standing at the end of the hallway. She hadn't pressed the button, and there was no reason for the lift to be there. A chill ran down her spine as she slowly approached it. Why would you go to it? Get what you need and leave.
Yeah. I'm focused on my task and I'm not making any diversions.
The doors were open, revealing an empty interior. Hesitantly, she stepped inside, pressing the button for the ground floor.
She's not got her supplies yet, has she? Or
maybe
she
she just quickly grabbed them.
Yeah.
The lift descended smoothly at first, but then it stopped abruptly between floors. Emily's heart raced as the lights flickered, casting ominous shadows on the walls. She felt a presence, a cold, heavy weight pressing down on her. The air grew thick and she struggled to breathe. Just as panic began to set in, the lift resumed its descent and its doors opening to the dimly lit basement. Stepping out, Emily tried to shake off the unsettling experience. As she walked towards the stairs, she heard faint whispers echoing through the corridor. Turning a corner, she saw a figure in an old-fashioned nurse's uniform standing at the far end. The nurse's face was pale, her eyes hollow and empty. Emily froze, unable to move or speak. The ghostly nurse began to walk towards her, each step slow and deliberate. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, fear paralysing her. Just as the nurse reached out a translucent hand, The overhead lights flickered back to life, and the figure vanished. Breathing heavily, Emily sprinted up the stairs, her mind racing with questions. When she reached the safety of the new wing, she confided in a senior doctor about her experience. He listened with a grave expression and then shared the legend of the ghostly nurse, a woman who had been unalived by a patient many years ago. Her spirit, it was said, still roamed the old wing, seeking justice for her untimely unaliving. From that night on, Emily avoided the old wing wherever possible. She never spoke of her encounter again, but the memory of the ghostly nurse and the haunted coffin lift remained etched in her mind.
It's my third shift.
I'm transferring. I'm not staying there.
I just feel like it's a bit much. Like, they've not even eased me in.
Would you rather know it's haunted? I don't think I would. My mind can do that for myself.
There was so many instances in that. Like, the lift coming up, it's like, oh, okay, someone might have pressed it, got off at their stop, but pressed it on my stop as well, so it's come up to my stop.
Yeah.
But then
To,
I get in and then have this
me up.
experience. Then I go down to the basement and there's a ghost nurse with a translucent hand.
And hollow eyes.
It's all just a lot. And I feel like just one experience at a time would have been easier for my acceptance. And then I think she's brave to talk to a senior doctor about it, because personally that's not the route I'm going.
No.
I'm finding the least senior person there to express this
Although, fire me, please.
Yeah.
I welcome it.
I'm clearly not stable to work here. And then for him to be like, oh yeah, like it's just a legend we've got here. Like,
oh, her.
I've seen her, they've seen her. I would just be like, well, no one told me prior to this, so I've just had this unsettling experience.
Imagine getting home and then Kira's like, how was your day?
Don't even ask.
I'll stop you there. Also, stairs were always an option. She ran up the stairs. Why did you take the lift? The coffin lift.
I judge her for even getting in the lift herself. But yeah, no, that should be part of the interview process.
How are you with lifts?
You've got the job, but something you've got to know before you accept it is we've got this legend and people have seen her and never get in the lift.
They're like, here's your lanyard with your pass on. Here's also a rabbit's foot. You're gonna need that. Oh my god.
Oh, so my next story is from a deleted person on Reddit. It's so annoying when they don't have their names, but it's called Night Shift at the Hospital. I worked as a nurse at a hospital in the UK that was initially constructed during World War II and was supposed to be a temporary facility. However, that was not the case, and it was further built upon and still remains as a slightly modernised building. I recall doing a night shift during the winter time and had a patient admitted with us with an infection, but otherwise had no illnesses, and that could affect their cognitive function, i.e. dementia, learning difficulties, etc. At around 2/3 a.m, said patient began to scream from the side room that they were placed in. Myself and another nurse responded. Once in the room, I tried to defuse the situation and calm the patient down. All the while, the patient was screaming about how a man with a bag over his head had been stood at the side of the bed watching her. As we entered the room, I could tell something was off, and I felt a shift in energy, despite myself telling the patient that there was nothing to be concerned about. Once settled, myself and the other nurse that came with me had turned to leave the room and witnessed what I can only describe as a shadowy figure pass through a set of double doors outside the side room in which the patient resided in. The doors are behind a bit of an alcove, so you can't see them from the side room, but once you leave the room you can see them. After a few seconds, both myself and the responding nurse clicked onto the fact that the double doors are always locked and have to be unlocked with keys. The time it took from us seeing the figure pass through that area and how long it would take to unlock said doors, pass through them, and then lock them again from the other side would be near on impossible. Therefore, we both came to the conclusion that it was a ghost or entity of some sort and returned to the desk somewhat unnerved. Just somewhat unnerved. The hospital I work at has its fair share of ghost stories, and this is one of the 3 experiences I've had personally during my 5-year stay with this hospital in particular.
3. 3. There's more.
There go, they say.
Yeah, what's that about? Is that what you're in the hospital for?
I loved how it was just slightly unnerved. Like, I'm going back and being like, oh, I'm going to call it a night there, guys. I'm actually suddenly got a headache.
Look at the time.
Come
I love
before
how
me,
they
I'm
saw
going
the
home.
shadow, but they were like, you're okay. Okay, we're going to go now.
You're fine. Even though the energy's off in the room.
Yeah, it's all good.
Is this your last one? I've lost count.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is my last one, and this is the one that I really want to see what you think about
Okay.
it. This is a Reddit story from TX Cryptids, and here it goes. This is a story that was told to me by a nurse who worked in a nursing home in a small Texas town. Now, in this nursing home, there was 2 wings which were connected by a hallway. Compared to the front wing, the back wing was always a bit heavy with gloom, maybe even spooky at times. Not sure how to explain it, but there was certainly a darker atmosphere. For this reason, the nurses disliked staying in the back, so after the residents were in bed and the night's last rounds were completed, they would migrate to the front nurses' station. This nightly trek went on for a while until the administration learned of it, and for liability reasons instructed the back wing nurses to stay in their assigned place of duty. There were always ghostly happenings. Nonetheless, these incidents were mostly shrugged off as the imagination of tired and overworked employees. But there was one incident in particular that was quite terrifying and witnessed by several people. One resident, Mr. Gomez, was rumoured to have been into witchcraft throughout his life. Late at night, Mr. Gomez, according to reports from other residents, would creep into their rooms like a serpent born out of hell. He would slither on his stomach, his arms at his sides. His eyes would be rolled back in his head, his tongue darting in and out of his mouth, flicking the air like a human snake.
I'm sorry.
Literally, when I first read it, I also cracked. Because just the thought of it.
Oh, okay.
At first I found hilarious. Minutes later I found terrifying.
If it happened to me, I don't know what I'm doing. But just hearing about it and just the way they described it as serpent out of hell, and he's just there like, it's just so fun.
Propelling himself.
You'd be like, get out of my room. Mr. Gomez, what are you doing?
Oh God.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Whew, okay.
He would crawl under their beds and try to push them off. He's the devil, the other residents would claim. Well, the reports weren't taken very seriously. After all, these old folk were half out their minds. Nice. And realistically, how could feeble old Mr. Gomez, who needed assistance of nurses just to get out of bed, be physically capable of such actions? The nurses all agreed that the reports were just imagined stories of old, confused people. That is, until the terrifying night that the nurses all became believers of the evil that lived within Mr. Gomez. It was well past midnight, the residents were sleeping, and all the halls were quiet. The nurses had gathered in the back lobby to sit and wait for the morning. Most of them were at the point of dozing off when a loud gasp broke the silence. One of the nurses stood up, a frightful expression on her face. She pointed down the hall towards the resident's room. As the others turned to look, a horrifying scene unfolded. It was Mr. Gomez, slithering on his stomach, making his way down the hall and into the room of a slumbering woman.
Do that.
Exactly. What is propelling? How is he doing that? They just stood there, petrified, unsure of what to do. Mr. Gomez was now crawling through the hallway, heading right towards the lobby, and the fear struck the nurses.
I would lock the door to the nurses' station so quick.
The stories were true. Mr. Gomez was slithering like a snake. His eyes rolled back and his tongue flicking in and out like a cursed beast.
Just imagine being in handover to the day shift and just being like, going for each patient and then getting to Mr. Gomez and being like, so we had some trouble with Mr. Gomez last night. I don't know how to say this to you all. The rumours are true. He slithers like a snake, and I know this because I've seen it with my own 2 eyes now. Was this in the day where smartphones were a thing? Because I think I would need to record it to the managers to be like, this guy needs to leave.
The Chamber of Secrets has been opened again.
Up to him speaking in parcel tongue.
He just slithers back to his room.
Oh my god.
You know, I didn't know if you would crack up or if you would be scared. It could have gone either way. We've come full circle.
I don't know what I would do if this was me. I really I don't know what to do. I'm just picturing. Like, obviously, I've got a few comments.
I've not even finished the story.
Not even finished with the story, so I'll wait until the end of the story. Let me just dry my tears. Oh, the chamber of secrets have been open. Oh, that's fine. Okay. The monster that lives within inside the chamber is Mr. Gomez. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, finish the story.
Okay.
Because I've got some comments.
Have you? It's pretty open and shut case. I don't know if I can finish the story. Okay, right, let me just... Oh, God. Whew. I can't, because the first sentence is definitely okay. They watched as he snaked through...
Just stop. Okay, just power through it.
Okay, right.
I'll save it till the end.
Okay. They watched as he snaked through the lobby furniture, crawling between chair legs and hissing at the shocked women's stall. The nurses all ran up the hallway to the front desk. The doors to the back wing slammed shut as the last one passed through. They stayed up the front for the next few hours, and as the sun began to peek over the horizon, they gathered enough courage to go and check the back wing. Everything was quiet, and Mr. Gomez was once again sleeping in his bed.
I'm surprised they didn't get a steak in his heart.
Oh, they're like, for the conservation of Mr. Gomez, I'm going to let him eat me.
I'm going to sacrifice myself.
No, you can't. Oh, okay.
You told me not to laugh at this story.
I know.
Before you tell it. Now look at me.
Look at us both. Right. A few nights later, Mr. Gomez passed away. As the nurses were attending to his body, several loud thumps were heard against the window. They pulled open the drapes to see what could have they pulled open the drapes to see what could have made the noise. And just as they did, an owl flew into the window, clawing at the pane as if trying to get in.
This is literally Harry Potter.
It's Hedwig.
Like, no, when, is it Earl? You know Ron's owl?
Oh!
Who just hits against the window all the time.
It's not Earl, but it's sort of like Earl, isn't it? Or is it Earl?
Ernie? Comment down below if you know it, because we clearly don't.
The bird then flew into the nearby tree and landed among several other owls perched high in the branches. The birds just stared down at the room where Mr. Gomez lay dead, waiting to claim his soul.
Okay, my comments. I'm just thinking about how all the nurses on shift, they weren't tending to the other patients. They just locked themselves in this one room for hours.
Fend for yourself.
Point number one. Point number two is when you said they pulled open the drapes, I thought Mr. Gomez was just going to be like, quickly come out at them. Point number three, when you said he slithers under their bed, I'm picturing it in my mind like there's this little old lady on the bed asleep, and then Mr. Gomez slithers in and goes underneath it. And have you ever seen orcas trying to get the seal off the ice?
Yeah.
And he's just like rocking the bed and she's just clinging on for dear life, like, please, Mr. Gomez, please. What should I ever do to you? And
Does he just give up and then just slither out again?
What happens if he gets you?
Oh, no.
That's what I want to know. They go in the next morning. Let's say they've lost Doris from room 5. They go into Mr. Gomez.
There's a Doris shape.
Yeah. There's just a Doris shape in his belly, and they're like, maybe it's true.
You just see the wig like.
And the fact that, like, another point, I forgot what point I was on, but the fact that all these residents were saying the same thing, and it's so bizarre.
Yeah.
I get their mental state is compromised, but at what point is it like, how are they all saying this really bizarre thing? Because I don't think you just think this thing up. And if that's not a true story and someone's just made that up, like, that is, I loved it.
But
every minute of it, every word I ate up.
It's so weird because I found it so funny, and then the more I thought about it, the more it scared me, and I just know I'm going to be thinking about it. Like,
Oh, it's creepy.
I'm
It is
just going to be
creepy.
waiting for him to slither in my doorway.
Put it this way, if it was an unseen entity or Mr. Gomez, I think I would choose Mr. Gomez. To see that on shift, when you're with other people as well, like you're with the other nurses, you're not Doris in the bed who's about to get eaten.
No, they left her.
But you're with the other nurses. Like, can you imagine when you're hiding in that nurses' station and you're just creasing up with each other?
I don't know if
You're
I'd be
just
laughing
like,
yet.
What on earth? It's real.
Because I'd be like, who has a priest on speed dial?
I don't even know who to call. The on-call manager?
We
What
an
are they
old priest and
gonna
a
do?
young priest. Oh my God, we're about
that
to
was
live out The
brilliant.
Exorcist. But how did he do that? Like, was he possessed?
I
How
don't think
did he
it was
do
just
that?
I don't know. Because you don't move like that. He would need to have been possessed, and the fact he actually thought he was a snake, like, that is just. Or did he? He probably wasn't even present. But like, did people confront Mr. Gomez about this?
Did they have a conversation with him?
Like Doris the next morning, like, I'm actually getting a bit tired of this little game because I'm just trying to sleep. I'm 84. Let me rest.
I'm a snake. Oh
You
my
just
God.
hear the door opening and you just be like, oh, Mr. Gomez.
Here we go again.
His name's Salazar Gomez.
The true heir.
Enemies of the air, beware.
That's just on his door.
Written in. The nurses see it one morning and they're like, oh, art. Nice. Art therapy. Oh, that was a really good story. I don't know where you find that, but that really soothed my soul and
Oh.
tickled me.
I don't know how it was just one of the many Reddit threads that I came across.
That's funny.
And there were bits I did change because some of the words were in Spanish, like for witchcraft
Oh,
and
yeah.
and for owl. So I don't know if owl like symbolizes something
Yeah.
in
I
that
don't know.
culture.
It just made me think of Harry Potter and being like, this story is really giving Harry Potter, like, all of it now. Apart from, you know, that he's in a nursing home and it's not Harry Potter.
A few details have been changed.
Yeah. It had undertones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that did bring the energy up.
Yeah. The Watchery.
Yep.
I don't know how I'm going to get through the rest of this episode, to be fair. I'm just, my mind is spinning.
I'm still on Mr. Gomez.
You've spun me and I'm not going to get off of it. I bet tonight I have a dream and Mr. Gomez is under my bed.
Are you sleeping alone tonight?
No, you can't even get under either of our beds because they've got drawers underneath,
Oh, you
so
can
it'll
get
be
under
fine.
mine.
But
Although there's loads of stuff under it, so he'd be slithering over. Shoes
I feel
and
like
bags.
how weird my dreams always are. I just know that I'll be like on a mattress but in the sea, and then Mr. Gomez will be like a sea serpent, like trying to bash me off, and I will be Doris in the bed like, no, please,
Mr. Gomez, please.
So that will probably be, I don't know, yeah, my dreams are scary, so I can imagine it would go down that vein.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Watchery this week. I'm doing a movie this week because I haven't done a movie in weeks, and I feel like, you know, I quite enjoy doing the movie reviews. I enjoyed talking about the documentaries, but I can't actually review them.
Yeah.
God.
Oh no, hopefully you're not getting the illness.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, so I don't feel like I can review documentaries because they're real life, so I don't really want to review real life events.
Yeah.
So anyway, movies I feel like I can review. So this one's got a rating, and like I said to you, when I was telling you what one I was doing for the episode, we watched 3, and this one's the higher one. I thought I would talk about the higher one.
Yeah.
So it got 7 out of 10. I'll say that from the offset. It's on Netflix and it's called Baghead.
Oh. Yes.
Have you seen it?
I've seen the trailer for it.
Okay.
I've been trying to build myself up to watching it.
It's not that scary. If I watched it alone, it might have been scarier. But I won't tell you what happens at the very start. I'll sort of jump to the bit after that. So we see something happen at the start that I'll go back to.
Okay.
But we meet a girl called Iris and her friend called Katie.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was a friend or girlfriend.
Okay.
And when I watch these movies and then review them, I find it really tough because my attention span is so small that sometimes I miss details.
Yeah.
And I don't feel comfortable saying they never address it because I honestly, they could have done, and I could have just been thinking about Mr. Gomez.
Thinking about the Chamber of Secrets.
So I don't, friend or girlfriend, it doesn't really make a difference to the story, but her friend is called Katie. And we meet Iris, whose father's just passed away.
Yeah.
And she inherits his pub because he lived in an old pub and he was the landlord. And she goes in, it's quite a spooky old looking pub. And there's an area above it where she lives and then the bar downstairs. And she moves in, and on the first night, she hears something downstairs. So she goes downstairs and you see a basement door with like this weird symbols on it, weird writing on it.
Right.
So you think, oh, that's a bit strange, but she doesn't have the key to it initially. So she hears this noise, but it's not coming from the basement. It's coming from someone who's broken into the pub, who's like, let me see the woman in the basement. And obviously she doesn't know about the woman in the basement. So she's like, is this a joke? Like, what are you on about? And he's like, just let me see her. Here's £2,000.
£2,000?
So she is like, look, I don't even have the key. Come back tomorrow in the day and we'll talk, because she's very broke. She needs this money.
Yeah.
So her friend Katie finally comes to join her the next day because they weren't together at the beginning, but Katie was like, I'm not going to let you go through this alone. I'll come and meet you.
Yeah.
So she comes round, and Iris is like, look, I got this guy coming around with £2,000, and all he wants to do is get down into the basement, so we'll just let him down there and then like
Missed
do
a
his
key
thing.
detail.
Yeah. Yeah, the woman in the basement. So Katie's like, oh, that's a bit weird, I don't know about this. So anyway, the guy who's comes back in the day, his name's called Neil.
Yeah.
So Neil comes back with his money, and Iris has now found the key. They all go down to the basement together, and there's like a room with a chair, 2 chairs, and then like a bricked up wall with the bricks broken in the middle, so it almost creates an alcove.
Okay.
So Neil is standing there knowing about whatever this is down here, and he's like, come out. And nothing happens for a couple of minutes, and Iris is like, okay, you've had your chance, like, we're going up, because it was obviously quite spooky as well, just being down here.
Yeah.
And he was like, just wait.
Oh my god.
So they wait a little bit more, and they hear some noises, and then this thing walks out, this woman who's in rags, and she's got like a Hessian bag over her head.
Yeah.
And she walks out.
Where does she walk? Like, does she climb out of the hole?
No, the hole's to the floor. So you can just walk out. It's like an alcove, but it's been like smashed through with bricks. So she walks out, and she comes over, and she starts walking towards Neil. Neil's like, get away from me. But the thing about this lady is she will only obey the landlady or landlord of the pub.
Okay.
So when Iris tells her to stop, she does. And so she's like, sit in the chair. And Neil's like, it obeys you. Anyway, the thing with this lady is she can bring back your loved ones. So Neil really wants to see his late wife to say goodbye properly, so he says.
Oh.
So he gives her his wife's engagement ring that was passed down from his mother, and you give her an item of your loved one, she eats it, and then she'll transform into your loved one.
Okay.
So she eats the ring, but instead of transforming into his wife, she transforms into his mother, who Neil's got mummy issues going on.
No refunds, Neil.
Yeah. So they have a bit of a spat, and then after 2 minutes, the mum's eyes go black and starts attacking Neil. There's a whole thing. And Iris and Katie are just standing there like, what is going on? Like, what the hell? They put the bag on the head and managed to get her to go back.
Yeah.
And then they come out of the basement and they're like, this is never happening again. What was that, Neil?
Yeah.
And Neil's like, no, we know how it works now. She must have got confused because that's my mum's ring, but I gave it to my wife Sarah. But no, we know how it works. We can go back down there. And Iris is like, no.
Did you forget about what just happened?
Yeah, I'm putting an end to this. So he's like, look, money's no object. I can pay you £2,000 a go.
Neil.
Here's my number. Call me if you change your mind. So Iris is like, £2,000 a go, I do need money.
How many loved ones you got, Neil?
And Katie's like, no, Iris, this is a really bad idea. So anyway, they find a tape left by her dad, which is the clip we saw at the beginning, and it kind of explains who this lady is.
Okay.
Well, actually, no, it doesn't. It just explains a little bit more than what we know already. So the dad actually tried to harm, unalive the entity that's in there by setting fire to the basement, ended up setting himself on fire, and that's how he passed. So he wasn't successful, but he left the tape to say, whoever gets my pub, she's your responsibility now. You are the owner of her, and if you try and leave, she will bring you back.
Ooh.
So it turns out that Iris and her dad have a complicated relationship because he basically abandoned his family and they never knew why, but now she's found out it's because of this woman in the basement.
He couldn't leave. Okay.
And if he left, bad things would start happening. Death and destruction would follow. So he always got pulled back in. So she, in the tape, he says, look, you get 2 minutes with your loved one. After 2 minutes, she will change and you're no longer in control. So don't use her. Just leave her. Don't use her, otherwise she'll start getting inside your head. And Iris was like, oh, 2 minutes? Well, that's perfect. I'll ring Neil and get him round, because now I know we just need to set a timer for 2 minutes. So she rings Neil, and Neil comes back over, and he brings something else of his wife Sarah, and Sarah actually appears. And then we find out that Neil's actually a bit nefarious, because instead of saying goodbye to his late wife who died in a car accident, he says, oh, who were you sleeping with? Or who are you at? Who was the other man? Or something. And Sarah was like, where am I? What is going on?
I've watched you argue with your mum, and now I'm watching you argue with your late wife.
So after this interaction, again, the eyes go black, and she starts like spewing some horrible stuff at him, and they have a little tussle. The bag goes back on, she goes back. And Iris is like, that wasn't about saying goodbye then. That was just to question your late wife. And he was like, yeah, but now I know there was no other man. Now I know she was just going for a break from the argument. So anyway, it goes through Katie trying to find out what this entity is, and she doesn't like the fact that they're using it at all, but Neil and Iris are kind of working together. So Katie goes on this mission to find out what it is. She goes away and leaves because Iris pushes her away, and then she comes back to say, I found out information about what she is and who she is. It's like this witchcraft thing that ages ago people used her power, but then it started becoming a bit demonic. So they boarded her up in this building and put spells on it and stuff, so she couldn't get out. And obviously there was something in it of an owner, whatever the rules were. But they cast a spell, and she still resides there today. So Katie found all of this out, came back to the pub. Iris is passed out upstairs for whatever reason, and Katie goes down to the basement looking for her, and unfortunately in the basement reaches her demise.
I was gonna say,
why did you go down there alone? Yeah, literally. So then Iris and Neil, after Iris figures out that Katie's been unalived, she's like, I don't want anything to do with this, Katie was right, we need to board up the hole, because obviously burning it doesn't work. So we need to board it. And Neil's like, you seem tired.
Oh my god.
Let me just give you something to help you sleep. Gives her 2 little blue pills or whatever. She takes them for God knows what reason, because she trusts Neil. And she falls asleep, and Neil's like, I will board up the hole.
Oh my god.
Don't worry about it. And her dad had said to her, as long as you stay on the other side of the hole, it's fine. So just don't go into the alcove, basically. Just stay on the other side of the line. And also, if you command her not to leave the basement, she can't leave. But you need to make sure she doesn't leave, because if you leave, you're unleashing havoc in the world. So it's a lot of responsibility. But anyway, Neil goes down there. He speaks to Sarah again. And Sarah's like, what did you put in my wine the night before I left to go out driving?
Oh.
So he gave her something to relax her and calm her down. He was like, I didn't know you were going to go out driving. So it's basically Neil's fault.
Oh my god.
And we find this out. And then we also find out Sarah was pregnant. And Neil's like, we could still be a family.
What?
I just need to get my name on the deed. And then we can be together. Forever.
Oh, jeez.
I just need to get Iris to sign over the deed. So he gets hold of the deed and signs his name on it, but Baghead is like, the name just goes away.
Yeah.
And while this is happening, Iris is actually standing behind him listening to the whole thing, but he thinks she can't hear him, or he thinks she can't hear him. So he signs his name on and the name disappears, and Baghead's like, that's not how it works. Unless Iris is unalived. Iris needs to be unalived before you can put your name on that deed. So Neil's like, okay, fine. I don't want you to abandon me like Mummy did.
This
Literally
guy.
such an ick. And Iris then obviously cottons on to what he's doing, so she runs upstairs to the roof to try and get away from him. He chases her up there and pushes her off the ladder, and unfortunately she also passes away. So Neil then brings her body inside to the basement and gives her mobile phone to Baghead to eat. And Baghead's like, comes back as Iris, and she's like, well, why did you do that? But after 2 minutes, obviously it changes, the eyes go black, and it's the demonic presence.
Yeah, but he doesn't know that. Or does he know that?
He does know that.
Okay.
And Baghead's like, thank you, Neil. You've brought my keeper back as me, so now I'm the keeper.
Oh, Neil.
So she changes into all 3 women in his life, Sarah, his mum, and Iris, and they all basically kick the shit out of him, and he passes away.
Neil.
Yeah, and then she walks out of the basement, because obviously she's her own keeper now, as God. Iris. But
Yeah.
it was creepy, not necessarily like really scary, but
Yeah.
I enjoyed the plot line. It was quite a cool plot line. It was different than your average. Horror films usually follow
the same. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like that. So I gave it a 7 out of 10, and I would recommend people to watch it, even though I've just spoiled the whole thing.
Even though you know exactly what's going to happen. Go watch it.
It was a good film.
Was she a witch then? Or she was like spirit? Or what
I think
is
she was a psychic, and then I don't really know what happened, but I think the townspeople basically went on a witch hunt, and after her passing, she would start to come back.
Oh.
I can't really remember the whole story of that bit. And there was obviously things that happened in between. Obviously, it's like an hour and a half long movie, and I go through it in like 10 minutes. So there's obviously more that happens than that, but that's a brief plotline overview. And yeah, I gave it a 7 out of 10. It was really good.
Well, now I don't need to watch it. Thank you.
No, watch it and see what you think. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed today's episode.
Yeah.
Hope we gave you a good spook, and I think we'll all be dreaming of Mr. Gomez tonight.
I think we will.
They need to make a movie of that man. that I would pay money to see. That would be a good watchery. I hope none of you have been inspired to get eaten by a green anaconda. Don't
or
try
Mr.
that at
Gomez.
home. Yeah, literally, just stay clear of them both. But yeah, if you like the episode, comment a snake emoji down below if you got this far.
Ooh, maybe shiver.
yeah. If you got this far, and yeah, like, subscribe, do all that usual jazz.
All the things.
All the things that you're meant to do that make our day. We really appreciate it. So yeah, hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we will see you later.
See you later.
Spooky and kooky, mystery and wonder. Feel the magic under. Spooky and kooky.